question. Lord Faulkner of Worcester.
My Lords, I beg leave to ask the question standing in my name on the order paper.
My Lords, we welcome the recent report. This government supports a thriving international rail passenger services market, given the benefits of greater choice, new services and lower fares, and also the opportunity of serving Ashford, Ebbsfleet and Stratford with international trains. We're also keen to see the growth of international rail freight, which supports the government's growth mission, and we are working hard to increase freight flows through the tunnel.
My Lords, I'm grateful to my noble friend for that encouraging answer, but he'll know that in 2010, Deutsche Bahn brought one of their ICE trains through the Channel Tunnel to St Pancras, with a view to starting through services to Germany from 2012. Other companies have indicated a similar interest, but nothing at all has happened. Does my noble friend agree that not only increasing the use of the stations that are now out of use, like Ebbsfleet and Ashford, is important, but the tunnel access charges need to be reduced too, if these services are to be competitive? And on freight, is he aware that currently the amount of freight going through the Channel Tunnel by rail is actually less than went on the train ferries operated by British Rail more than 30 years ago?
I thank my noble friend. I think I was there when the Deutsche Bahn train was at St Pancras in 2010. Sadly, that, as he says, didn't materialise. There is a real opportunity currently for more passenger traffic and to more destinations, and this government is determined to seize it. My right honourable friend, the Secretary of State, recently signed a memorandum of understanding, for example, with her Swiss counterpart to explore the setting up of a direct connection with Switzerland. On the charging situation, the access charging framework for the Channel Tunnel provides for an incremental reduction in unit charges as traffic levels increase. Eurotunnel also operates a discount scheme for new routes. HS1 is currently consulting on a similar scheme, so those are important for new entrants. And the recent review of the control period charges by the Office of Rail and Road have reduced them by 10.4% for passenger trains and for 66% for freight trains. The volume of freight does need to increase, and it would be good if it were greater than the old train ferries cope with.
31 years ago, on May the 6th, the forecast for freight traffic was between 8 to 10 million tonnes. It peaked at 3 million tonnes and then fell to 1 million tonnes. As the Noble Lord said in his question, there is enormous scope to take the freight off our roads and actually put it through the tunnel. What specific measures does the government envisage taking to achieve this?
The noble Baroness is right that those statistics are disappointing, and the aspiration then was for far more than, as she notes, currently exists. But I think in answer to the previous question, I said that real reductions in charges, particularly for freight on HS1, and the charging regimes for both the tunnel and HS1 will help in encouraging freight traffic, and I'm spending quite a lot of my own time speaking to potential users of the tunnel to demonstrate to them the government's enthusiasm for more freight through the Channel Tunnel.
My Lords, given the report's finding that better international rail links could replace 6.5 million short-haul flights per year, will the government commit to cross-departmental work to actively shift passengers from air to rail for short international travel, potentially cutting CO2 emissions by up to 680,000 tonnes annually?
So the noble Baroness is quite right to have regard to the environmental benefits of travelling by train and replacing short-haul air traffic. That's why we're spending so much effort to create the opportunities this time for greater use of the tunnel to more destinations and by more operators. I've seen, I think, all but one of the potential competitors for Eurostar recently. She will know perhaps that the greatest difficulty is the availability of depot space in London. The Office of Rail and Road have recently concluded an interim report, and I've asked the department to look urgently at other sites that can be used in order to increase depot capacity, to increase the number of passenger trains through the tunnel.
My Lords, given that the only high-speed line that we have in this country was a 70-mile line built in 27, opened in 2007, from London to the Channel Tunnel. And in the meantime, countries all around the world have been developing high-speed rail, whilst we, under the last Tory government, simply cancelled 2 of the high-speed lines that were being prepared. Can I, at the very least, ask my noble friend, firstly, to protect the routes of the planned lines to the northwest and to the northeast, and secondly, isn't it time that this government developed a strategy for high-speed rail, which is being done by so many other comparable countries all across the world?
My noble friend is right to refer to the peremptory cancellation of certainly of Phase 2A of HS2 by the previous government. The first question that I answered in this House was from the noble Lord McLaughlin, who asked me what the alternative was, and of course the truth is that the previous government cancelled the Phase 2A without regard to any alternative, and this government has to devise what it will now do. But we have an even more urgent job than that, because actually the present state of HS2 as a project is really not where any of us would like it to be. It was neglected by the previous government. We have to fix that, which the new Chief Executive is in the course of doing, and we have to then persuade ourselves that investment in railways of this sort is a good thing to do because it can be managed properly.
My Lords, the noble Lord the Minister reveals himself in his answers to be a great enthusiast for competition and open access on the HS1 line. Why is it then that 8 out of the last 9 applications for new open access routes on the Network Rail services have been turned down?
The noble Lord will firstly know that the decisions currently, at least on open access, are made by the Office of Rail and Road, but he also needs to note that in fact the governments have not subsidised HS1, Eurostar or GetLink, unlike the National Railway Network, which receives billions in subsidy at the taxpayer's expense, and therefore when looking at open access applications we have to look at the net effect on the railway subsidy for this country as a whole. But also he's ignoring the fact that the Channel Tunnel is underused. The report that my noble friend Lord Faulkner referred to says that it's half used for passengers and it's only used for 10% of its possible freight capacity. That suggests that we should be enthusiastic about its greater use, unlike most of the National Railway Network, which is very nearly full. I referred to the noble Lord McLaughlin's question to me about the West Coast Main Line. There are very few paths, and consequently we should be very careful in their allocation, especially to competing train services other than those franchised by the government.
My Lords, I welcome what the noble Minister has said about encouraging greater traffic through the Channel Tunnel. But what can be done to convince the north of England, Scotland, the more distant parts of the United Kingdom that this won't just be of benefit to London and the South East? And particularly, there's on the continent a tremendous growth at the moment of long-distance sleeper services. Could these not be encouraged by the government?
I thank my noble friend. Of course, he'll remember that the original idea was to have through services from the Midlands, from the north, from Scotland, from the west of England, and sleeper services too, but they were discontinued before many of them started operating because the business case and the economics of them were quite weak. We think for the moment the best thing we can do is to encourage a multiplicity of destinations with reasonable speed and frequency, which will itself generate traffic and will encourage people to travel by train, even though they might need to change in London.
Is my noble friend aware of the fact that a single train journey, goods train journey, can remove 70 HGV journeys on the roads, and in some cases even more than that? That being the case, wouldn't expanding the rail network, and that includes high-speed rail, free up capacity on the road network, therefore making the road network significantly safer.
The noble lord is right, of course, that actually rail freight is extremely environmentally friendly, and that's why this government is spending a lot of time and effort, firstly to encourage rail freight, including setting a target for the new Great British Railways to increase the level of freight, but also remembering that freight needs its own space on the network for train paths, and that too refers back to the noble Lord Moylan's question about open access, and it's another reason to be careful about allocating all the space on the railway to competing passenger operations.
That